Heya Cryptozens, it's 10 p.m. Pacific time. The date is October 30th, 2022. Welcome back to the Crypto Overnighter. My name is Nikodemus, and I'll be your host as we take a nightly look at the crypto, NFT, and metaverse space and the industry that surrounds it. Keep in mind, nothing in this show should ever be considered financial advice. Well, this should not surprise anyone at all. Again, Do Kwon, co-founder of Terraform Labs, has come under legal scrutiny. In addition to the attention of prosecutors in South Korea, not only is he facing criminal suits, he's now facing at least one civil suit as well. That's because there was a suit filed in Singapore against Kwon, Nicholas Platius, and the Luna Foundation Guard. And this suit alleges that the defendants made fraudulent claims. Now, part of the suit is the fact that Terra USD was not, quote, stable by design, and that's why the stablecoin wasn't able to maintain its peg. So, $57 million. That's how much the claimants are asking for amidst claims of loss and damage based on the value of the stablecoins they were holding when things went south. They're also seeking, quote, aggravated damages. Now, this suit alleges that the defenders, quote, knew or ought to have known that the claimants wished to buy and hold cryptocurrency stablecoins that were not subject to the volatility of the wider market and earn a decent passive return. They said Kwon should have known about the inherent weakness of algorithmic stablecoins because he was there when Basis Cash went under. I'd say he's pretty lucky he didn't get in trouble then. They said, quote, the defendants made the said representations fraudulently, either well knowing that they were false and untrue, or recklessly not caring whether they were true or false. So, for those that are keeping score at home, Kwon's facing an arrest warrant in South Korea. He's been ordered by the South Korean Foreign Ministry to turn over his passport. Interpol has released a red notice on him, which means they're asking for law enforcement to help track him down and possibly detain him. All of this while he's still posting away on Twitter. He said he's making zero effort to hide. Now, speaking of the Terra Luna Black Swan event, we have Hodlnaut. Hodlnaut is a crypto lender that froze withdrawals back in August. Now, we covered that actually on August 16th. So they're going through the system in Singapore's judicial. And so Singapore's court appointed managers to see Hodlnaut through the bankruptcy process. Interim judicial managers, they're called. And they're having problems figuring out Hodlnaut's financial position. Quote, among other reasons, the company's accounting and financial records have not been properly maintained. And it sounds like there might be some sabotage going on, because they said some Hodlnaut employees were preventing them from getting access to some of the books and records they need to do their work. This comes after Hodlnaut's higher-ups faced criticism for not being open and honest about the company's exposure to Terra USD. Looks like what happened is Hodlnaut converted a bunch of crypto to Terra's stablecoin, and then that stablecoin got staked on Anchor Protocol. Directors of Hodlnaut HK said that the losses are in the neighborhood of $189 million. Presently, Hodlnaut has an estimated $74 million in assets, and they're carrying debt to the tune of $267 million. So the interim judicial managers intend to consolidate Hodlnaut's assets into a single custodial wallet. They're also planning to continue taking a look at Hodlnaut's directors to see if there are any other claims available for creditors to pursue. Genesis is also a crypto lending firm. They've seen loan originations and trading volume drop in the last quarter. Their quarterly report referenced the months of crypto winter as well as the casualties in terms of bankruptcies and crashes experienced by major crypto companies. This report said, quote, heading into the fourth quarter, the cryptocurrency market is lacking directional momentum as part. Genesis remains prepared for a sustained crypto winter in light of such powerful macro headwinds. In the second quarter of this year, Genesis had over $400 billion in loan originations. That dropped to $8.4 billion for the third quarter. That's a 79% drop. They also experienced a dip in their trading volumes. Spot trading went from $17.2 billion in the second quarter to $9.6 billion in the third quarter. That's a 44% loss. This tells me that Michael Patchen may have known what he was doing, because he was hired by Genesis to be their chief risk officer. It was after Genesis announced back in July they had significant exposure to Three Arrows Capital. So they're also a victim of the Terra Luna Black Swan event. Now, he made it 3 months as their chief risk officer, and then he resigned that position. Celsius wants to pay their employees a retention bonus, which I guess I can see. Everybody knows Celsius's days are numbered. I'm sure anybody with any value has already fled for parts unknown. That is, unless they were made an offer too good to refuse. And hence the reason that Celsius wants to give 67 of its 275 employees a total of $2.96 million in bonuses. The United States trustee involved is not convinced. His name is William Harrington, and he said, quote, "It defies logic, not to mention the bankruptcy code, that a company where the majority of its functions are no longer providing services would now propose a multi-million-dollar bonus scheme." So in order for Harrington to sign off on this bonus motion, as it's called, he said Celsius must show these bonuses are reasonable. He said that Celsius needs to provide him with the metrics that show that the employees deserve their bonuses. Now, he's not saying he's explicitly against it. He's not saying that they don't deserve their bonuses. He's just saying that Celsius has not made the case that paying these bonuses is the right thing to do. And he also questions the secrecy involved. Now, if you were a customer of Celsius, your information got plastered all over the internet. Anyone who cared to could look to see just how much you invested and lost with Celsius. However, if you're one of these people due to get a bonus, that information is kept secret. Harrington points out that this means that there is no way to know if these participants would be whether considering insiders or not. Because if they're insiders, they are not eligible for retention bonuses. And there's nobody there to say, hey, that guy's an insider. He doesn't get a bonus. There's nobody to make that call. And that's because nobody knows who is and is not on that list of participants. Now, this bonus motion has a hearing scheduled to take place on November 1st. Sam Bankman-Fried is due to get a huge payday as a result of the Twitter-Musk deal, $100 million payday. We sort of covered this recently because SBF was in talks to become part of Musk's plan to acquire Twitter. They ended up not really connecting on that venture, but that aside, SBF owned between $50 and $100 million worth of Twitter stock before the sale. And while SBF did pull out of that deal, it wasn't all that huge a factor, because that $50 to $100 million, that pales in comparison to the $44 billion price tag that Musk paid, 0.1 to 0.2% of that. However, Sam's got bigger things on his mind these days, like debating legislation, because he's been catching flack lately due to his support for legislation currently making its way through D.C., the Digital Commodities Consumer Protection Act. In part, this bill would put the Commodity Futures Trading Commission in a position to regulate the crypto industry. So he posted a long blog piece last week, and this found him embroiled in controversy. And a lot of that controversy came from his position on regulating decentralized finance projects. He ended up debating Eric Voorhees for a couple of hours on Friday on the podcast Bankless. The next day, he said he was exiting the debate. He said he would leave this debate for others to decide. He said, quote, "I won't push against the community's strategy, even where I think it might not be the most effective way to accomplish the goal." Now, this bill that he's been pushing for was put forth by Senator Debbie Stabenow and Senator John Boozman. And people are concerned over a recent draft making the rounds, specifically a change that would allow a DeFi study to heavily influence future policymaking. Now, SBF didn't say whether he was planning on continuing to keep lobbying for the DCCPA. That said, he did give a warning, because there are a number of bills making their way through the legislative process. There are a lot of details involved. And so he's not convinced that the majority of the crypto Twitter community has considered all the angles in those bills. Now, one of the things that crypto Twitter does largely support is the idea of CFTC regulating the crypto space, specifically because they believe that the CFTC will bring crypto spot exchanges. There are a lot of people hoping for a Bitcoin spot exchange or an Ethereum spot exchange, but not everyone. Vitalik Buterin is kind of okay with the slower pace of things right now. In fact, Ethereum's co-founder thinks crypto needs more time to mature, and it also needs a better regulatory environment where crypto projects can operate freely. It was in a tweet that he came out against regulations that affect the inner workings of crypto. So what he's saying here is that there's two types of regulation. One is protecting the good guys, and the other is frustrating the bad guys. Protecting the consumer, and then making it difficult for the bad guys to move their ill-gotten gains around. He feels like it's worth it to wait for regulation that allows inner independence, regardless if that delays crypto from going mainstream. He said, quote, "I'm actually kind of happy a lot of the exchange-traded funds are getting delayed. The ecosystem needs time to mature before we can get even more attention." And he also rightly points out that the know your customer measures on decentralized finance just don't work. Quote, KYC on DeFi front ends, would annoy users, but do nothing against hackers. Hackers write custom code to interact with contracts already. And that's appropriate, given the wallet's nature of crypto. That said, he sees zero-knowledge proofs as a way to meet regulatory requirements and still preserve users' privacy. So it will be interesting to see if Vitalik faces some of the backlash that SBF has, or if people are more comfortable with Vitalik's take on things. And finally, the Blockchain Association is a crypto lobbying group based in DC, and they want to get involved in the case that the Securities Exchange Commission is pursuing against Ripple Labs. They want to support Ripple as a friend of the court. Now, this, of course, goes back to the SEC's case against Ripple from the end of 2020. In their filing, they said, quote, "The SEC's extremely broad interpretation of the securities laws would have devastating effects on the industry and even outside the industry." Now, their point of view is that the SEC should have taken a look at XRP's specific use case. They said when the SEC used secondary sales as proof that XRP is a security, they said that was unlawful. Because while many tokens have secondary market uses, they don't rise to the standard of the Howey test. Quote, "The securities laws do not contemplate how an asset may have been issued as a security can exist when it is no longer attached to any form of investment contract, a crucial consideration when attempting to apply Howey." This really should have been over a long time ago. Both the SEC and Ripple Labs have pressed for a summary decision from the judge that's trying the case. And further, given the SEC has been forced to turn over the Hinman documents, this case should have been ruled in favor of Ripple long ago. The Blockchain Association was joined by Investor Choice Advocates Network and Spend the Bits, Inc. Both organizations have also filed their own amicus briefs on Friday. Their argument is that the SEC's definition of investment contract is too vague to be useful. And so I think we're going to call it there for the night. I want to thank you, my listeners, because when you stop listening, I will stop talking. We'll see you tomorrow night.